What's up, YouTube? So today we are going to be changing the water pump and thermostat in my 2008 Saturn Sky Redline. And so these are the parts. Here is the water pump. That is the water pump. And the part number will be that right there, the 12630084. And since we're going in there and doing the water pump, I'm going to go ahead and do the thermostat too. And that right there will be the part number, the 12622410. And to remove the water pump, you will need this special tool, the water pump sprocket holder for GM Ecotech. This was purchased on Amazon for about $24. You do need this part because without it, you will mess up the timing on your car, and that would not be good for your engine. So get this tool, will save you a lot of headaches. It was about $24 on Amazon, and I will provide the link below. These you can just get from your GM parts or your GM dealer close by, or you can get them online with the parts number provided below. So the water pump will be located right down. Let's see how I can get this right there. And there will be a little cover up here. As you can see, those very frontward bolts down here. That is where the cover is. Well, we will use that tool, and back here is that's the actual water pump. There will be quite a bit of stuff to remove. It is a little tight in there, but it shouldn't be too bad. So the first thing we are going to do is we're going to take off the stock intake that runs to the turbo. That's the first thing on our way, and so we're going to take that off. Should just be some clamp there, one right there, and then just getting this connector and then the this sensor off, and it should come off just like that. The intake is now off, the hose to the turbo and the whole intake is off. Took off the the engine cover, and now we're gonna go ahead and remove this exhaust shield, which is just 2 bolts right there, and it's kind of hidden. You can see it right there in the middle, 1 bolt. And then after that, we're gonna be removing this the cowl where the windshield wipers go to have more space. Okay, so the next thing will be to drain the coolant. There will be a little plastic white nub right there, and you just turn it left to start loosening it, and fluid will not come out of there. It will come out of right there, but you just turn it and the coolant will start draining out. And I recommend taking the coolant reservoir cap off, that way it can just drain easier. But the next thing will be just wait for this to drain out, and we can move on to the next step. Now that all the coolant is drained, we will remove these 2 heater hoses that go down to the thermostat. We will be removing those 2. Looks like it's just clips up here and clamps down there. Once the heater hoses have been removed, we will now remove the 2 bolts from the thermostat housing. One will be right there and the other right something there in the right there. Should be just 210. So I ended up using some pliers and just pushing that back, and with the hose clamp out of the way, I was finally able to remove the other bolt, and there is our thermostat. So now we can go ahead and get that replaced. So next we're going to be removing the thermostat housing right there, this, and there will be 3 bolts holding it in, but that one right there started to get it out, and it hits the downpipe. So luckily the downpipe is just 4 bolts, and I will be disconnecting those now. So now we removed the downpipe so we could remove the thermostat housing. It was 3 bolts, one right there, there, and one underneath right there. Now it should be free, and now all we gotta do is take it off so the tube that runs from there to the water pump can be loose, and now after that we can start finally getting to the part where we take the water pump off. Once you remove it, it will come out just this piece by itself, and then this long tube, and that will be the last step before we finally start getting to take out the actual water pump. Once we got that removed, the coolant crossover pipe and the thermostat housing, we will come up here, and this little cover with 4 bolts, 4 10mm bolts, we will need to take that off, and that is where we will use our special tool to hold it in place. So let's do that. So now I put the tool on. Basically you just take the 4 bolts off, line it up. It will be tricky to line up. It's not the most easy thing. As you can see, it's tight in here. And then you just reuse 2. You tighten the bolts in the middle, the black nuts, and then you use 2 of the holes, the 2 bolts off the cover to tighten it down, and that will just ensure that it does not fall inside the timing chain in there. And now will be the most tricky part, which is there are 3 bolts in there. I don't know how good that captured on video, but there is 3 bolts in there. Now that I successfully took out the 3 bolts holding the water pump onto the timing chain, I used a towel for the very top bolt, so in case by any chance it did fall, it would catch it. The bottom 2 bolts, I did not have this on. I just used a regular 10mm to take those 2 out, those 2 at the bottom, and then I just had a magnet in my other hand in case I did drop it, the magnet would catch it. Those are kind of tricky. That's the other one. There it is. And now we will take off 2 bolts out of the front of the engine, which would be that one right there, and then there's one underneath right around there. Hopefully the camera caught it, but those 2 we will take out next. So after popping those two off, there will be a bolt right here, and then one right down here, which I will show you in the water pump when it's out. So, and it should, after these two, that's it. It pops out. So let's see how we can get this out of here, because there is not a ton of space here, but let's see how I manage to get it out. Water pump is out, and the way I did it is there are 5 screws holding this back plate in, and I had to remove it, and then you take this out first, and then the water pump comes out afterwards. So now we will just do the reverse, which means I will have to take these 5 bolts out of the water pump to be able to put it back in. And then also we will go ahead and take off these 3 bolts and take this off, since we will not be using this part because we will just reuse the old one. So I put half the water pump itself in, and then I put the cover in it afterwards, and then I put the water pump and the cover, aligned them, and then put the 5 bolts holding them so I could put them in. Then after that I put this bolt first to line it up, and then this one. They're not all the way tight, just kind of most of the way. And then I did the 2 at the front, that one right there with the red on it, and then the one right there, most of the way tight, not all the way tight, as you can see, just so I could have play in this. And then to put the 3 bolts in was the toughest part. That was not easy. But basically the way I did it was I used my right hand and I moved the water pump itself to line up the 3 holes. I used my phone's camera to line it up. It did take a while, but once it was done, I basically just got paper towel, folded over, put it over the 10mm socket, and then put the bolt in so I could move it without it falling. And then I put all 3 in here, as you can see. Those 3 are back in there, so I will tighten those down and then tighten the other 4, and then we will start getting everything put back together. So now putting it back together, I have put the water pump and all the bolts back together. I reconnected this hose. Couldn't get the factory clamp on there. No matter how hard I tried, I must have struggled this for like an hour. Even it opening up all the way, I could just not get it. Ended up running to Home Depot and getting a regular hose clamp on there. It's pretty tight, so I don't think it should be coming off. So now next we'll put in the coolant crossover pipe that comes from the water pump to the thermostat, and let's do that. So everything has been put back together on that side, and after that you just need to fill the system with coolant again. So DDM has a YouTube video on how to do that, and I tried it, but it really didn't work for me. So the way I did it is I just undid this little bolt right there, this clip, and the sensor for the coolant sensor on bottom of this, and I just lifted this up, put coolant in it, and then drove it around the block. This went down. I waited for it to cool off, put more coolant in it, drove it around the block again. The coolant kept going down and filling the air pockets with coolant. I did this about 3 times, and then on the third time, as you can see, I drove it around, and yeah, the coolant is in. It stayed between 181 and 189 for the temperature. I drove it in a little bit of stop and go, a couple full throttle runs, and then just driving around normally. Stayed between 181 and 189 the whole time. I used about 1.5 containers of this Pre-Stone, the Dex Cool system. I got the concentrate since I knew I was going to be using good amount. I had another empty container, so I used that to mix it. Used about 1.5. This one's about halfway, a little less than half. So I definitely recommend getting one of these and then just mixing it up. Or if you don't want to, you can just grab 2 of the one ready to use ones, and that's how much you're going to need. But yeah, that's how I did it. There are other ways of doing it. I know you can take this off and somehow with compressed air, and there's other ways, but that's just the easiest way I found. And yeah, there is no leaks. Car runs great now. No weird noises. So that's how you change a water pump in a 2008 Saturn Sky Redline. And now that that's been done, more mods will come in the future.